What is cracking, YouTube audience? We are about to go through a couple of our weekend segments here. Just going to stream it to you directly live here on YouTube. So, getting right into the thick of things, we're going to go through the what I got right and what I got right. Or excuse me, the what I got right and what I got wrong segment. This what I got right and what I got wrong segment is brought to you by Colorado Native Company. So if you're in the need for any sort of HVAC services or products, be sure to hit up my man Robbie with Colorado Native Company, and he will get you all taken care of. Let him know the Peanut Gallery sent you, and they will treat you all like family. So if we are starting off and we're taking a look here at this card from the bottom running all the way up to the top, what I got right as far as the Maxime Grishin matchup, along with the William Knight matchup, I thought that Maxime Grishin was going to be able to ultimately get this job done, especially with Knight having that catastrophic of a weight miss, missing weight by 12 pounds. That's just, it's unacceptable. It's inexcusable. Be a professional. In terms of what I got wrong, I thought that the fight was going to be a little bit more action packed than it was. It was just kind of more or less. It was a couple of big guys that were position battling themselves throughout the contest. Following from that, we had the much anticipated debut of one of the champion Israel Adesonya's teammates in Blood Diamond, a world renowned, highly accomplished kickboxer who was making his debut against the 9-2 at the time, Jeremiah Wells. Blood Diamond started off not too bad, but then once it got into the ground game and into those grappling sequences, you could tell that was just something that is it's a bit of a deficiency in his game and something that he's got to continue to round out should he want to continue to make the climb within the mixed martial arts rank, especially considering that was only his fourth professional MMA fight. It's just tough for some of these guys. They're so accomplished in another walk of combat sports, but then coming into MMA where you have to add the grappling aspect, it's tough to make up for some of that lost time, if you will. The fight beyond that, man, this fight was everything that you could have asked for from a viewer's perspective. It was like a supernova. It shot out of a cannon. It didn't last long, but man, was it a fun fight to watch. When we're taking a look at the matchup between Douglas Da Silva de Andrade taking on Sergey Mrazov, Mrazov started off by having Silva de Andrade. He was extremely hurt, especially from a couple of the punches that sent him down to the canvas, and he just had the ability to continue to scramble and find a way to survive through those trouble moments, and ultimately was able to pull off the rare. I mean, if you had money on the Silva de Andrade that he was going to get the submission, then hats off to you, because I believe that's either only the first or second submission in his entire 30 plus fight career. I mean, when you're looking at him out there fighting, we know what's coming, and he landed those bombs a couple of times, but when he landed the menacing blow, it was kind of like how Josh Rem talked on the show last week of, like him or Zach Cummings, those type of guys, they'll hit you with a really hard shot, have you wobble, then they'll get you to the ground, and then they'll submit you from there. So it looked like that was kind of the situation that happened. We had Jacob Malcoon take on AJ Dobson, who AJ Dobson was making his debut from a successful bid on the Contender Series out of the Immortal camp out there in Ohio. He had Mark the Hammer Coleman over there in his corner. Malcoon just looked to be someone who he showed his grappling pedigree or his grappling experience in that way. He apologized for saying that the fight wasn't necessarily something that he liked, but I thought that we were going to potentially see a grapple heavy approach from him in that particular fight. So that's what I got right as far as that matchup went. What I got wrong was I thought that Dobson was going to be able to find a power shot that would put him away. Obviously, that did not happen, so I missed on the entire prop there. The next matchup, as far as what I got wrong when it came to Mana Martinez and Ronnie Lawrence, I thought that there was going to be a striking advantage for Mana Martinez. I just thought that he was going to be able to dart in and out and find his opportunities on the feet. And especially now that he's been working along with the James Krause, I thought there was a chance that he'd be able to find some more opportunities to maximize his efficiency. However, a guy like Ronnie Lawrence has improved by leaps and bounds since we last saw him essentially a year ago against Vince Cachero. Ronnie Lawrence is a guy who made his way into the UFC off of the Contender Series, and the dude is a takedown machine, but his stand-up is continuing to improve. We saw him put Mana Martinez down to the canvas multiple times. However, you have to give all the credit and respect in the world to the warrior spirit of Mana Martinez, as he wasn't done at any point throughout that fight. Once he had the opportunity in the third round, he throws that spinning back fist. It lands, it finds its mark, and it floored Lawrence. He just wasn't able to execute on the opportunity for the finish right there in front of him. But nonetheless, he's still a fun kid to watch, and I look forward to the future for both of these guys for that matter. That put Ronnie Lawrence up to 8-1. He's got some serious skills that some of these guys in the bantamweight division are going to have to look out for, because he's a dog and he's not afraid to make it dirty. And if his stand-up continues to round out the way that it does, look out, because that's a problem for a lot of people. The next matchup, man, this was a heartbreaker. What I got right and what I got wrong in the Carlos Ulberg and Fabio Cherant matchup. What I got right was I said that Fabio's left hand is going to be a problem if it lands. When he threw it, it had success. But unfortunately, he just froze essentially. I mean, I love Fabio. He's a friend of mine, and it just didn't look good in terms of his output in the third round. You know, he froze out there. It's something that can happen to anybody. I think that he still has a bright future. He's only in his 20s. He's in a weight class where he's fought nothing but killers the entire time that he's been in the UFC, and he's had to overcome and had to deal with some tremendous life adversity. So I do hope that he gets another opportunity, and this wasn't the last time that we saw him fight in the octagon. Now, as far as Ulberg goes, what I got wrong was that I thought that he was going to really kind of show off that tactical side of his kickboxing. And he did, don't get me wrong, but there were times where I feel like he could have really put his foot on the gas, especially as it came to the third round when, you know, like I say, I mean, for lack of a better term, Fabio froze and he wasn't really throwing anything in return. Ulberg could have really started to unload and push the pace to try to potentially work his way into a finishing situation, and he just didn't do that. In the next matchup, the Kyler Phillips and the Marcelo Rojo matchup, Kyler Phillips is a savage, man. What I got right as far as this fight as far as this matchup goes, is that Kyler Phillips is gonna come out there like a wounded animal, especially following the last fight where he felt like he got robbed against Talia Paiva. When you have a competitor and a dude who is as high level as Kyler is, he's already got a motor that drives him and makes him want to succeed and thrive and do well in these moments. But then you add some controversy and some adversity in the form of a decision that was, in most people's eyes, robbed from him. Oh no, that was a man who was on a mission and who had conviction within his purpose to go out there and find a finish. Do not allow the judges to come into play. It's not to say that Marcelo Rojo, who had the 125-pound former champion Brandon Moreno over there in his corner, is not to say that he's not a tough fighter, because he is. He's a very tough, talented young kid, but going up against somebody like Kyler Phillips, I mean, he entered the matrix, to put it as simply as possible. And Kyler Phillips, once he was able to pull off that triangle armbar, beautiful. That crew down there at the MMA lab, they're a lot of smaller weight guys that have had tremendous success over the course of the last couple of years. And they've also got a big body who went and got it done that we'll talk about later on the card. So shout out to all the guys down there at the MMA lab down in Arizona. We saw the end of an era in the Roxanne Modafferi and Casey O'Neill fight. Now, this fight was a split decision. As far as what I got wrong for this matchup, I didn't think that Roxanne was going to be able to have as much success on the feet as she did with Casey, But I also have to give the nod to Roxanne in the sense that she knew that this was the last one before she went out there. And as she said in her post fight interview, she left absolutely everything that she had in that octagon. She gave the people, she gave Casey everything that we could have asked for, and then some. The fights that we've seen from Roxanne over the course of the last 2 decades, you have to give her nothing but the utmost respect as a true pioneer of WMMA. She was fighting long before women's MMA was even sanctioned and legal in some areas. And now to say that she's crossed over the threshold of 50 pro fights, there's a lot of people, period, in the history of mixed martial arts that have not eclipsed the 50 fight mark, and Roxanne Modafferi has. Now, as you'll see, if someone tries to be cute with it and call me out, if you go look at her Tapology, that, oh, well, her official pro record is only 45 pro fights. But if you've heard her speak about it, she has a handful, close to a half dozen of fights that were on, say, reservations or in these areas that did not report the bouts. And that's still an issue that we have to deal with some local cards out around here that just flat out don't report the results or don't report what's out there. So there's no record online of it on that Tapology. But again, hats off to Roxanne Modafferi. Now, what I got right with this matchup was I thought that Casey O'Neill was going to go out there and be able to get the job done, keep her undefeated streak intact, and walk out with her hand raised. I didn't think that it was going to be filled with as much adversity as it was, just simply based off of the history that we've saw from Casey. But then again, we also know that Roxanne is the prospect killer in a lot of ways. Look what she did to Macy Barber a couple of years ago. There was a fair amount of the people out there, and especially the way that the line shifted in the betting world, that somewhat suggested that they thought that this could be the case, that she would be that vet that had some savvy tricks that was just too much to overcome for such a young prospect. And she did give her a tough time. I mean, there was definitely some moments of that fight where Casey has never been put through a test in that regard. But again, she was ultimately able to show that she is a real serious threat and prospect in that women's flyweight division. And, I don't want to see her take too steep of a climb yet as far as the rankings go. Let's let her continue to build. Let's not fast track her to Valentina just yet, because she's not there. She is not ready for it. Start building her up with maybe, say, like a Jessica I next or someone in that regard. I know that she maybe doesn't want to fight Joanne Wood. They're fellow countrywomen, and they both train out there in Vegas. So I don't know if that's something that she would really entertain. I know that she talked about that she's open to it in the press conference, but you know how that goes. Sometimes it's I'll take anyone. But when it gets down to brass tacks, there's too many close relations and ties. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight, though, either. I would, like I say, I just want to see her continue to build in a strategic way that does not allow her to get fed to the wolves, I guess we should say, because I do think that she has some star power. And she recognized that she was not the fan favorite, especially because of all of the fanfare surrounding Roxanne's retirement fight. So her leaning into it and saying, "Hey, you don't want to cheer for me. You want to boo me. Well, here you go, flipping the double birds out to the crowd." That's going to be those type of moments that get played on and on forever. She'll still be on highlight reels, just like Ally Aquinta was, when Ally Aquinta like, "Hey, you guys booing me? I fought my ass off." That type of situation. So she was able to at least recognize and capitalize on the moment to have a little bit of that soundbite or that internet share-worthy aspect to her fight. In the next fight, what I got right and what I got wrong for Andre Arlovsky and Jared Vanderaa, I thought that what I got wrong was I thought that there was a chance that Vanderaa might be able to clip Arlovsky. But again, that didn't happen. The thing that we have to really tip our hats to is Andre Arlovsky has figured out a way to revamp his style and reapproach the game based off of what his remaining skill set and attributes are. He's obviously not the same guy who was once the UFC World Heavyweight Champion, who was going to these different organizations and fighting the best of the best out there that the world had to offer. He's not that guy anymore, but still in his early 40s, he's one of the top heavyweight fighters in the world still to this day. And he's been able to, like we say, with the help of Mike Brown and those guys at ATT, figure out a game plan and a style that works to his attributes. And what I got right as far as this matchup goes was I thought that it was going to go for the over, and I thought that Andre Arlovsky was going to figure out a way to get the decision. That's now, I believe, 5 out of 6 for the Pitbull, and who knows what's next for him. I don't think that he has. I don't know. I don't think that he has another run left in him, but that may be something that we talk about a little bit more down the way. Bobby Green, man, what I got right and what I got wrong in the Bobby Green and the Nasrat Haqparast matchup was what I got right. I said on the MMA plug on Mile High Sports last weekend, you could follow that along every Wednesday night from 6 to 7 p.m. on Mile High Sports Radio, 98.1 FM in Denver, or stream it at denversportsbetting.com/radio. But I said that Bobby Green was my featured fighter of the week. Anytime that Bobby Green fights, it is must-see TV. I just love everything about Bobby Green when he's in there fighting. Everything from him chirping back and forth to the shoulder roll. There's nobody else in MMA that can pull off the shoulder roll. Bobby Green can. Bobby Green also fights with his hands down at his side and just shoots that jab the way that he was popping Nasrat with that. Nasrat's head looked like it was a Pez dispenser, just pop, 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 just going back the entire time. I think that Bobby Green is one of those guys who's built such a fan following on the on the hardcore and the underground level for so long that he's finally starting to get the recognition from the macro level. As we heard the other night, we heard the crowd chanting Bobby, Bobby, Bobby during that fight. So I'm looking forward to seeing Bobby Green in some more marquee type of situations and maybe a main event down the way. We'll see. The following matchup in Hanato Moycano taking on Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. What I got right in this matchup was I felt that Moycano and the rear naked choke is always going to be a threat. That's something that has shown throughout his career that it is one of his go-to submissions. And if he's able to get to your back, it's a very, very tough time. And as the result showed, that's how it was. What I got wrong as far as the matchup was I thought that Alex was going to pull off I thought that he was going to get the first round knockout. There was a couple of times where Alex had him hurt. Alex has been working a lot more on his game as far as slowing things down and being a little bit more calculated in the approach and chipping away, boom, going for the kill type of situation. And he was working well toward that. It's just when you're facing high level guys, especially a competitor like Moycano was able to find a shot that snuck its way through to the body, and that was what was able to be the difference that led to the sequence that took the action down to the canvas. And there's going to be more things, bigger, better things that come from this from Alex. I know that he gets a lot of undue hate from the media out there, which drives me crazy because you get these clickbaity writers out there who all they want to do is paint him to be the bad guy and to be the villain in this narrative. And I don't think it's fair. He's a great dude. He's one of the hardest working guys that you're going to come across in a gym. And he's a highly intelligent kid. And if a couple of things go differently in that Cowboy fight a couple of years ago, you're talking about this guy in the same vein as, like the way that Conor was at the time, especially given the way that moment was, if he were to have gone out there and sparked the geriatric dude. But yeah, I just think that it's some undue criticism that continues along for him, but Alex is going to be back and he'll be on to better things in the future. In the feature fight of the night, we had a middleweight matchup between Jared Cannonier and Derek Brunson. Now, this matchup, what I got wrong was I thought that Cannonier was not going to have an answer for the wrestling. Cannonier defended the takedowns masterfully from Derek Brunson, and Derek Brunson, he kind of showed some of those old Brunson tactics, if you will, of just gassing himself out way too early, trying to move forward. And by about the first minute into the second round, he just looked like he was dog tired. It looked like he was off, like something was wrong, like he was hurt and that he didn't recover. And shout out to Jared Cannonier for being able to pull off the finish that he did. He looks to be the next challenger in the wings, waiting for that opportunity to fight Israel Adesanya for the 185-pound strap. In the co-main event, what I got right and what I got wrong. What I got wrong was I thought that Derek Lewis had too much power in this matchup for Tai Tuivasa. I thought that it was a bad matchup for Tai just simply because Tai likes to brawl, and you can't typically, most people, if you're in a position of taking one to give one with a guy like Derek Lewis, you're not going to win that matchup. Or if Derek Lewis gets on top of you and starts punching you, you're not going to be able to get up, or you're not going to be able to survive from that attack. Tai Tuivasa did both and defied the odds in that regard. So I have to give all due credit to the Aussie from the area. He went out there, he swanged and banged, and he was able to withstand a storm and deliver one of the most punishing elbows that we've seen in the UFC heavyweight history. He sent Derek Lewis face down, ass up, and was able to get the job done. Shoey's all the way around, promoted the Shoey Vasa that's coming out. Josh is going to be doing a Shoey again on the show this weekend, or this week on the MMA Plug, so tune in on Wednesday again to check that out. I think that Tai Tuivasa, now that he knocked out a top 5 guy, it's starting to get to a point to where we have to take him a lot more serious toward a threat toward the throne, even though I don't think that he's there or that he's necessarily at that point. I think he's got a couple more fights before he's in title contention. But again, if you're just looking at the numbers, well, if he knocks out a guy who's in that top 5, well, you've got to say that he deserves his ranking to be up in that same range. He's coming all the way up from 11. So I imagine that ranking is going to be a pretty low single digit number once his rankings are updated. And then in the main event, you had Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya, taking on Robert the Reaper Whittaker. What I got wrong as far as this matchup goes was I thought that Izzy was still going to be just too tactical to let it go the distance. I thought that Izzy was going to pull off the knockout. Didn't happen. He had Robert hurt a couple of times, but did not find the finish. He kept on pawing at his hand or readjusting his right hand and his knuckles. I haven't seen or heard anything official that there was an injury in that way, or the way that John Anik had spoke, that Rogan had texted him and told him that he thinks there might be an injury. I have not seen anything official to that. What I got right was Robert Whittaker is the superior grappler within those two, and he does have the ability to initiate some offensive wrestling and get the takedowns. However, I also said that the size difference was going to be an issue. Now, when we're talking about the comparison and the blueprint that Jan Blachowicz was able to set by taking Izzy down and being able to hold him down at times, it's just a much bigger man when we're talking Jan Blachowicz versus Robert Whittaker. Izzy had that sense of urgency that every single time that he got taken down by Robert, he was able to get himself right back up. Some people thought that it was a controversial finish or controversial decision in that Robert didn't get his hand raised. I don't know what you guys are watching. I really don't. I think that it was a clear fight toward Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya. I think that he in my book, very clearly won 3, potentially 4 rounds in that contest. So that's I guess that's where not having a clear, hard, defined line as far as judging goes is always going to be the detriment, and we're always going to debate these decisions because there's just not a clear rubric as to how these are being scored. That was the What I Got Right and What I Got Wrong segment for this week on the Comments from the Peanut Gallery MMA Weekend Recap. What I Got Right and What I Got Wrong is brought to you by Colorado Native Company. So if you do need any of those HVAC services or products, be sure to hit my man Robbie with Colorado Native Company and let him know the Peanut Gallery sent you. They will take care of you just like family. Moving along into the Afterthoughts segment. Afterthoughts is brought to you by Fat Ninja Combat Gear. For the latest and greatest in your fightwear, fashion, and MMA apparel, go to www.fatninjacombatgear.com today. pick up an order. They've got the original hoodies all the way through a variety of martial arts inspired merchandise and apparel, as well as some other memorabilia and things that you can pick up. So that's a member, like say, of our martial arts and mixed martial arts community. Support a small business, support a member of our community by going to www.fatninjacombatgear.com today. In the afterthoughts, if we're going to take a look at what is next for Robert Whitaker, folks, he's in such a tough position because I really do believe that as far as where Robert Whitaker is, he's head and shoulders above the rest of the division, but he's also lost twice to Izzy now. So a third title shot just isn't likely while Izzy is on the throne. What does that mean, or who is next? I really don't know. I do think that there's some exciting fights out there for Robert, but it's got to be a really tough predicament or a tough position to be sitting in for him, as well as his coaches and his management's vantage point, saying, like, what is next? Like, what do we do next? Because we're better than everybody behind us, but the person ahead of us, we've lost to now twice, and the chances of us getting him again are very, very slim. I don't know what that looks like for him. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Who do you think is next, or what do you think should be next for someone like Robert Whitaker? Are we finally going to get to see Bobby Green for a full 25 minutes? In the entirety of his long and storied career in the UFC, he's got over 40 professional fights now. He's basically grown up in the UFC. We have yet to see Bobby Green headline a card. He's put out entertaining performance after entertaining performance over the course of the last couple of years, and really kind of grown into a fan favorite role since the pandemic. Is this now time that we get to see Bobby Green for 25 minutes? He had one of the biggest pops of the entire night outside of the hometown guy in Derek Lewis, and arguably the biggest star outside of Conor McGregor in the entire sport, Israel Adesanya. That being said, when you have the entire crowd chanting Bobby, 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 I think that leaves a lasting impression in the UFC's head. And man, I would love to see Bobby Green for 25 minutes get down and dirty in a UFC fight night event. And so let's see what he has. Let's see where he can start to go and make a run from here. A great question that was posed to me earlier, and I had to think about it for a second, was how will Roxanne Modafferi be remembered? I think that Roxanne Modafferi needs to be remembered as a true OG. She was a pioneer of WMMA. Women's MMA is where it is because of people like Roxanne Modafferi. Like we talked about in the previous segment, Roxanne Modafferi started fighting long before it was legal and sanctioned in most areas for women. She's a legit black belt. She's someone who is a martial artist through and through. She's been in contention for a title a couple of times, and just it didn't go her way in that regard. But again, someone who has 50 plus fights in their career deserves nothing but respect. That human in the arena deserves all the roses that they can possibly get. And, hopefully she continues to remain an ambassador for the sport and to be a resource that some of these young women in the game can look to as a role model and an example, as someone who just was able to hold themselves with class throughout the entirety of their career. Next question is, does Andrei Arlovsky have another run left in him? Nah, I don't think so, and I really don't want to see him in that position. Like I say, he's at a point now to where he's adapted his style to his remaining attributes very well, and he's figured out a way to win the last 5 of 6. Let's let him keep on playing that gatekeeper role. I think he knows that that's the role that he's in right now, and let's let him keep on getting paid. He's going to wring out every last ounce of liquid that towel has to offer. I'm not opposed to that for him. And then the final question of this afterthought segment is, how does this loss impact Derek Lewis's legacy? Now, for me, I personally don't think that it's something that should be a major knock or a detriment to the long term of Derek Lewis's legacy, especially because if we're looking at it from this regard, they went out there and they did everything that they said they were going to do. They went out there swanging and banging, and they threw heavy leather until somebody fell. When you're two heavyweights who are as big and as strong and forceful as those two were, somebody is going to drop. And especially after the pace that they fought in the first round, there was no way that that was sustainable for the entirety of that fight. Now, was that a menacing blow with the elbow that was delivered from Tai Tuivasa? Certainly, but I do think that Derek Lewis was hurt prior to that. We saw him on wobbly legs, and I also think that he was exhausted. So you pair all of those things together, it's the perfect recipe of him falling the way that he did. It wasn't a dive, it wasn't a fall, it wasn't a fix, it wasn't any of that crap that some of the people on the internet who don't have a clue about what they're talking about are saying. That was legit. I mean, he was flush bone across the jaw, and that's just the way that it is, especially in the heavyweight division. If you're going to go out there and have an old-fashioned Texas shootout, somebody has to fall. And I think that's just the way that it played out right there for Derek Lewis. That wraps it up for this weekend's Afterthought segment. This Afterthought segment is brought to you by Fat Ninja Combat Gear. If you need to pick yourself up a new, fresh, and original martial arts inspired outfit, make sure that you go to www.fatninjacombatgear.com. This week, make sure that you tune into us on the MMA Plug presented by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. You can stream that in the Denver metro area at 98.1 FM or online at www.denversportsbetting.com/radio. My co-host, UFC middleweight Josh Fremd, is going to be doing another celebratory shoey for the Tai Tuivasa win. That's kind of became our tradition that with every time that the Tuivasa makes its appearance out there in the octagon, the Tuivasa is making its appearance on our show. So again, please make sure that you tune in for that this Wednesday. I'm Jordan Kurtz. You can follow me along on social media at Comments from the Peanut Gallery on Instagram, at Peanut Podcast on Twitter. Let me know what you guys think as far as what I got right and what I got wrong this weekend, as well as the afterthoughts. We will see you next week with a new weekend recap. And please hit that like and subscribe button. That helps us continue to put out this original MMA content. Thank you guys all so much for following along.